This is why you should not pick up random phone calls, and my aunt sadly learned it the hard way. Before I begin, just in case TikTok does shut down, here are my other socials, and make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'm always posting story times there. This story actually happened quite recently, and when my aunt told me this, whenever I get a random phone number calling my phone, my heart drops. So my aunt used to live alone in South Jersey in her 1-bedroom apartment. And her job was basically working as customer service for this company. So she just answered phone calls all day, speaking to customers and helping them out with whatever problems or needs that they have. So picking up random phone numbers wasn't something new. You know, it was practically in her blood. Like, it was a daily routine. She told me that one day, working at her job, she had to help out one customer with a problem. Once again, nothing new, so she got to work. Also, keep in mind, this isn't an at-home job. Right now, she's like in an office. Anyways, she told me that after her work was done and, you know, before she hung up on the customer, the customer, decided to love bomb her with compliments, saying how she had a beautiful voice, yada yada yada. So of course, the polite thing to do is to say thank you and go on with your day. And that's what she did, and you know, it wasn't anything too serious to think about. So she thought. She told me that after that day, that man would call customer service and specifically ask to speak to my aunt. And when he couldn't speak with her, he would threaten the company saying how he would call the higher ups and leave bad reviews and honestly just complain and say how they have horrible customer service. And of course, the company did not want that, so they ended up always putting him on my aunt's line. And when she told me that, I was like, yo, what? Like, that's disgusting. Like, the company, well, like, what are you doing? Like, you know someone is harassing your workers and you don't do anything to stop it because you care about a simple review or money? Like, what? And also keep in mind, because my aunt really needed this job, it's not like she could just straight up say, no, I don't want to work with him. You know, she'll get fired. So anyways, fast forward, days go on, and finally my aunt doesn't hear anything from this man anymore. He doesn't call the customer service line. Nothing. It's just complete silence from his end. She told me at this point she thought that she was free, but here's where it got insane. She told me that one day she was making dinner in her kitchen when she received a random phone call from her house phone. She picked it up, she said hello, and there was no response, so she hung up. About 5 seconds later, the same number, so she did it again. She picked it up, she said hello, there was no response, hung it up. 5 seconds again, the same random number. This time, she was fed up. She picked it up and said, whoever's prank calling, stop. That's when the voice on the other end said, is this? And it was my aunt's name. She said in that moment, she froze. Because she said she knew whose voice that was. That was the man that was calling her all the time at her job. So in that moment, she tried to lie and she said, no, but how did you get this number? When she said that, he didn't answer and instead hung up right away. So my aunt told me at this point she was scared because how in the world did this man get her number? And it wasn't even like her phone number, it was her house number. Fast forward the next day, she came back from work and she heard beeping coming from her house phone. She saw that her missed call message inbox was full. She ended up listening to every single missed message and it was from that guy. She told me how he was basically saying how he was happy that he found her number and that she didn't have to pick up because her voice message after, like, when you don't pick up the phone, it like leaves a voicemail message, that was enough for him to hear. He said how all he needed was her name and the place of work that she was at, and that's how he got the number. He said a bunch of more creepy stuff that she told me that I don't want to say on here, and she ended up blocking the number. She told me that was the worst mistake that she ever made in her life, blocking him on the house phone, because as soon as he found out that he was blocked, he got a hold of her mobile number and would non-stop send messages. And what's so mind-boggling is that when she told me that she would block him on her phone, he would get those fake number apps and then text her from there. This man went as far as changing his number and even getting a new phone to message my aunt. So my aunt said that this went on for weeks and she honestly didn't know what to do because there was nothing that she could do. She went to the police for help and they were useless. She went to her job for help and they were useless. And what's crazy is that if he could go as far as buying a new phone and changing his number just to message her, what else could he do? Fast forward, my aunt told me the next few weeks was like a pattern. One week he would call non-stop, then it was silent for the next week. Then the next week came letters, and then the next week after that, silence. She told me it was like he was planning something, and that's exactly what he was doing. My aunt said that when she received her first letter from this man, she knew exactly what was coming next. And it was that he was going to show up to her house. Keep in mind, y'all, my aunt lives alone. She told me for the next 2 weeks, she was paranoid. She was paranoid at her job, going shopping, walking back to her apartment, honestly being out in public. She was paranoid. She was terrified. She had absolutely no idea how this man got a hold of her address to send letters. And I remember one night she was on the phone with my mom sobbing because she was scared for her life. There were times when she would spend the night at our house because we both lived in Jersey. The only thing is that her job was so far away that she couldn't just, travel back and forth. It was too much for her. But my mom ended up telling her to call the police nonstop and make them show up, and that's exactly what she did. Fast forward, this was the week that she knew that he could possibly show up at her house. So she had the police hide out near her apartment, and y'all, this man showed up on a random Wednesday afternoon. This big old man was literally banging on her door saying, "Come outside, I really want to meet you." My aunt alerted the police that were outside on watch, and in short, he was arrested, and my aunt, because she was so traumatized by this incident, she ended up moving out of Jersey for her own safety. What's crazy is that this man traveled miles, and I'm talking miles, to show up at my aunt's house. But y'all, whenever I get a random phone number calling my phone, I always think about what happened to my aunt, and I'm like, oh no, is this my stalker? What's gonna happen, y'all? What's gonna happen to me?